Lesson 7. Practicing self-compassion. Welcome to the exploration of self-compassion, a fundamental aspect of personal growth and meaningful connections. In this lesson, we'll dive into the importance of self-compassion, understanding its role in fostering resilience and deepening our connections with both ourselves and others. Let's embark on a journey of kindness and forgiveness towards ourselves. The quote for this lesson is, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes," by Carl Jung. Now, this quote is something that we should all consider. You see, unfortunately, many of us get stuck before we reach the full expression and the essence of the heart chakra, because we are unwilling to forgive and let go of the past and hold resentment and grudges and bitterness. So those layers upon layers upon layers of these energies that are now compartmentalized within us, because of our inability to open our heart and be in the full expression of it, we miss out on the opportunities to fully embrace the true experience of life at the full spectrum of it. You see, when you have a closed heart, we are limited in our perception in what is possible, because we have all these denser emotions anchoring us into much denser experiences. As we explained before, why forgiveness is so important. And when we have a vision for the future, for our current experience in this present moment and so on, it is very crucial for us to have an awareness of what is within our heart, so that in the knowing and the experiencing of what is within it, we allow ourselves to cultivate the necessary energy, per se, from our chakra, so that we can create and align ourselves with that possibility, by allowing ourselves to fully feel and be in the embodiment of these emotional states that we truly desire and envision for ourselves in the future. But what happens is, like the quote says, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Most of us are trying to find a solution and resolution for the future that we want for ourselves by what we can do externally. And when we do things from the outside and not from the inside out, we're almost attempting to change the reflection in the mirror by telling the reflection in the mirror to smile when we ourselves are looking in the mirror frowning. And that metaphor, I use it because in order for us to truly be in peace and in harmony and in the abundance of all that is possible, to be in the awareness of what is happening within our heart is essential. Because from anything that's outside of us is only a reflection of how we see the world and how we feel about it, because we ourselves are the ones giving it the meaning based on our emotional states, based on our past experiences, based on our hurts and our pain and our traumas, based on our programming and conditioning and traditions and so on. So if these beliefs that we have accumulated, that have added layers of our heart, are much denser than they should be, we are never seeing the world clearly through our heart. We are seeing it through the perception that can sometimes distort our perception of what is possible, because without having an open heart, things don't look as clearly as they should, whether it's in your present experience as well as your future visualizations for what is it that you truly want to live in your experience of life, whether that's through goals or just a future vision of what is it that you want in your life. So when we try to understand more of the heart, it is to understand the self-compassion that is necessary in this journey. So when it comes to understanding self-compassion in its definition and in essence, self-compassion is not just a concept, it's a way of being. It involves treating oneself with the same warmth and understanding that we would offer to a close friend in times of difficulty. The essence lies in embracing our humanity with kindness. So a metaphor I like to use to bring this concept into a more comprehensive matter is that of us taking care of a child that we love and cherish, whether that's our own child, the child that could be someone we care for, or our nephew, our nieces, our students. It doesn't even matter. We understand that this child is still a child. We understand that the child has still time and experience to fully develop into its adulthood. Therefore, when we perceive the child, we're not perceiving the child with a dense criticism or judgment of his actions, of his emotions, of his lack of knowing and lack of understanding. We see the child from the perspective of its innocence, from the knowing that it still needs to go through layers and courses and phases of its own life experience so that it can fully bloom into the adult that it would become. So the same goes for us having self-compassion. You see, when we perceive ourselves, let's say the same way we go about our inner child, how we treat ourselves is how we either nurture and cultivate the right mindset for our growth, or we self-sabotage into our own demise, because by us not having that self-compassion that is necessary so that we can flourish and grow in our journey, understanding that we ourselves still need to go through some challenges and some experiences through the phases of life so that we can fully mature into our full potential. Without that understanding, we can be very cruel to ourselves. And by lacking that ability to have the open heart to know that we are just human, experiencing a human experience, and learning from this experience while knowing more of who we are through it. And who we are is not necessarily to say that we are the human incarnation of humans, but a spiritual being having a temporary human experience that wants to know itself through the courses and the perception of its own limitation, so that it knows what it is to be in its full potential after experiencing the lack of it through the illusion of separation, through the illusion of limitation, through the illusion of suffering and pain, and all these things that give us the full spectrum of the contrast that we truly are on a higher plane of existence, or as a soul, as a spirit having a temporary human experience. So when we learn to perceive ourselves from a higher level of consciousness, let's say as our higher self, we are perceiving ourselves as like children, learning what it is to experience the human world, the human life, what it is to be in a primal state and be tempted and triggered and emotional and physical and all of these diverse experiences that are gifted to us through this experience of life. It is not to be judged. It is not to be criticized. There is no right or wrong in this experience. It is simply that, an experience that allows us as a spirit to know more of the self through the exploration and the experience, you see. So when we try to understand self-compassion through its 3 components, what we do is we explore the 3 crucial components of self-compassion as it being self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. Because we learn to understand how these elements work together to create a more nurturing and accepting inner environment, because it is through the experience of our inner world, our inner environment, our inner story or narrative, that is what creates the projection of our external reality. So in order to reach any goal, any dream, any full potential, we have to understand the importance of this element of self-compassion as we learn to open more of ourselves by opening our heart to these elements, to these behaviors, to this mindset, so that the pursuit of our goals and our dreams is more calm and composed and peaceful and effortless, and not so cruel and judgmental, because we are just simply going through an experience that, from the perspective of a higher mind, only sees it as that, without the attachments of what we think something should be, but simply with the allowance of it being that what it is. As it is no right or wrong, it's just simply that, an experience. So when we think about the importance, once again, of self-compassion, we have here for number 1 is the resilience in adversity, as self-compassion acts as a shield during challenging times, fostering resilience by allowing us to acknowledge our pain without judgment, as we learn how this resilience becomes a foundation for personal growth. While also, number 2, deepening connections, because it allows us to discover how practicing self-compassion enhances our ability to connect with others authentically. As we cultivate kindness within, we naturally radiate that kindness to those around us, fostering genuine connections. Because like the saying says, hurt people, because what they're radiating from within themselves. They are treating you as they treat themselves. Whether we see it or not, it is very easy to know and see what is going on within someone as you see them project that internal dialogue externally to you, for example. So let's say there's a slight disagreement, and instead of the person standing in compassion for themselves and others, because they are in the abundance and in the energy of compassion, where it's easy to understand and see people's point of views and stepping into their perspective by putting yourself in their shoes and through their experiences and so on. It's easy to step into self-compassion and understanding of others when you're doing that for yourself. But let's say in the vice versa, that you're constantly criticizing everything you do, thinking you're not doing it good enough, thinking it could be better because you want to be perfect, because you find your value through the perfection of doing something right, because you don't feel worthy, so you have to make up for that lack mindset or that inadequate feeling within you by making sure that you do things a certain way. So in your inner dialogue, you're constantly saying, oh my God, you're so stupid. How could you do it wrong again? Like, what is wrong with me? Let's say that's what's happening within you, whether conscious or unconscious. What happens is when you lack self-compassion, you are going to lack the compassion for others. So what's going to happen is if you see someone else do something similar to that, where they make a mistake and they did something wrong, your natural instinct, your natural reaction, because you lack that self-compassion within yourself, and that's not what you're emitting externally, you're going to naturally call them, oh my God, you're so stupid, or how could you do it wrong again? Because that's what you're doing to yourself, you see. And we're all stepping into higher consciousness because that's what the energy of the earth is radiating and is rising in the frequencies of itself. So being able to see through the veils of these illusions and these facades and all that is going to be very effortless. And now that we're stepping into that new paradigm where this new possibility of perception is being cultivated at this moment in time, which is why I'm doing this in this now moment, we are quickly going to realize that how a person treats me, it's really how they treat themselves. Therefore, taking away the offense, taking away the taking it personal, because now we see a hurt individual, now we see a lost individual, now we see a self-critical individual, now we see a person that lacks self-compassion within themselves. So I understand now, and I know I am in the knowing. As I reflect on myself and do my work, I already know that, how that looks and how that feels, because I myself been there, right? So when I experience that from another individual, I quickly know that what it looks like for me to step into self-compassion is me understanding and knowing what is the pain that is now emitting and radiating out of this individual. That instead of having compassion for, let's say, my mistake, they step into the defense mode of calling me out of my name and so on. So now I know, that's how they're treating themselves. That's what they're saying to themselves internally. So now I notice that what they're saying to me is only but a projection of what they're saying to themselves. Or it can be to someone else, even when they're talking about someone else, let's say. They get triggered by the actions of someone else because deep down inside, that is a part of themselves that they have been attacking, that they have been criticizing, that they have been judging, that they have been suppressing, creating a shadow aspect within themselves. So when they see that shadow aspects, and shadow aspects can be positive and negative aspects of yourself that you are silencing, right? But when they see that shadow aspect being projected externally in their reality because it's an unconscious aspect of themselves, that's the same reaction they're going to do. They're going to react in the same way they treat themselves with those aspects of themselves, right? They're going to abuse it. They're going to attack it. They're going to judge it because that's what they're doing to yourself. So this is where we have to open our awareness and expand this possibility and change our perception of what we think something really is, when in reality, it is just a reflection of people's own inner suffering, inner pain, inner criticism, inner judgment. How they treat others is how they've been treating themselves, whether they know it or not. Because most likely they won't even know if they're not conscious enough. So self-compassion, it's a crucial step because of this matter, and I wanted to make sure that I highlighted these aspects and these concepts into this lesson, because it is very important to see the world from this point of view, because it allows us to then truly step into self-compassion for ourselves and others. Because now from our ability of seeing it from this point of view, we now have a better understanding and comprehension of what's really going on when that conflict or that interaction with that individual occurs. And we quickly know how to step back and observe and be more of the observer, not so much of the participant. Allow people to think and do what they feel they need to do for themselves, because it has nothing to do with us, right? So that's coming into another aspect of self-mastery, which is more in the higher levels, but I wanted to bring that concept into this lesson because it is important. Now in this lesson, we are going, once again, in 3 parts. The first part being the practicing of self-compassion, which is us understanding the importance of self-compassion and its role in personal growth and our connection with others. For number 2, we have forgiveness, which is another crucial part in the process of self-mastery, because it allows us to explore the power of forgiveness as a tool for healing and growth. Understand how letting go of past grievances can liberate you from emotional burdens. And for number 3, we have clearing emotional pain. Develop the skill and perspectives needed to understand your inner world and the pain held within. Cultivating the ability to connect on a deeper level, fostering healthier mindset and perceptions that allow us to clear emotional pain, which is another very crucial part of this lesson, because without these 3 aspects, it becomes a lot more difficult to truly step into the heart and open it for those that have it blocked or closed, because we struggle with forgiveness. We struggle with letting go of the burdens of the past. We struggle with clearing these emotions that are only tainting our perception and distorting our experience. Therefore, unable to step into the higher levels of consciousness, because we still have so much work to do in those lower planes of consciousness that are anchoring us in the stagnancy of it. Which brings us into how self-compassion contributes to self-mastery. Well, for one, we have emotional regulation, because self-compassion provides a healthier way to respond to challenging emotions, reducing the impact of negative experiences, and fostering emotional resilience. Right? Because if we see the world from a new lens, from a perspective of viewing our experience from maybe the perspective of another individual or the other individual that we may be interacting with or having a conflict with, instead of seeing or looking for how are you attacking me, and you start asking, where are you hurting? It changes everything. Therefore, your emotional regulation is only going to be a side effect of your ability to step into self-compassion. Because when you step into self-compassion, you're now looking for all the ways that I'm going to defend myself. You're looking for all the ways of understanding another so that I can better understand myself. Because if I'm having this experience, if I'm having this interaction, if I'm having this conflict, there is a form of a resonance that is occurring in this experience that I'm currently having that maybe I need to work on myself. So it is only through these experiences that I am given the opportunity to self-reflect on myself, you see. Because sometimes we don't really know what's going on within ourselves until we see it going on within another. But that's only when we have the ability to perceive life from the point of view of attempting to understand rather than attempting to defend, right? Because what is to defend? To defend is to continue an argument. And if I can't see your point of view and you can't see my point of view, then where is the resolution in that? More than likely, no one's happy. But when you think in the point of view where you're asking, how can I bring value here? How can I understand you better? How can I console you so that you can feel better? It is as if you are doing that for yourself, because what you reap, you shall sow, whether minimum or extreme. Everything you are emitting is going to be the experience that you will be having. So when you understand that the same way the micro and the macro function as within, so without, you start to navigate your life experience with a whole different structure. It's going to be a complete different system, which is why we need to get these basic fundamental aspects in the cultivation of self-mastery down to those playbooks. Because in order for us to truly be self-mastered, where it is natural and effortless, it is an instinct that is being radiated by the ability to have an open heart that is not blocked by resentment or grudge or bitterness, right? Or fear because you're scared to be hurt again. All these things are just blockages. Your currency is being blocked like a dam that is blocking the current of a river. Therefore, the water isn't flowing and circulating the way it's naturally supposed to. The natural course of that current is not going the way it's supposed to because there is a blockage. And where there is a current being blocked and stopped, there's stagnancy. And when there's stagnancy, there is no moving forward. When there's stagnancy, there's no moving into your goals. When there's stagnancy, there's no movement into happiness or nothing. It's just standing still, collecting the debris that is now cultivating the perfect environment for murky and dirty water. So now you have more extra stuff that shouldn't be there. Anyway, I digress. So going back into how this self-compassion contributes to self-mastery, we already spoken about emotional regulation and the why behind it. The next one we have is improve decision making. By approaching oneself with kindness and understanding, individuals can make decisions from a place of self-awareness and clarity rather than being clouded by self-judgment, which is similar to the example I just given you metaphorically. As the current is blocked, the clarity of the water doesn't exist because everything is stopping. There's no flow. There's no ebb and flow. Therefore, it's going to be harder to make decisions when your judgment is clouded by the stagnancy of your own energetic source. Therefore, lack of self-awareness and clarity is more probable in a situation where you're not allowing yourself to flow and allow things to be and find and look for the intention to understand and bring value and console and comfort and bring clarity to another. And the next one will be increased resilience, recognizing the shared human experience and embracing imperfections enhances one's ability to bounce back from setbacks, promoting resilience in the face of challenges, right? Because we start to realize that we are all just human having our own experience. Everyone's going through their own phases, stages, based on their level of consciousness, based on their level of evolution, based on their necessary lessons to learn from, based on what their soul needed to evolve on a spirit level. So all of these things are playing itself out. But simultaneously, all collectively playing together. Because everything is interconnected as we are all one. Source divided through the illusion of separation, having individualized experiences. So when we recognize that we are sharing experience and everyone is not a beautiful imperfection of itself, we learn to embrace the process. Therefore, it's easier to gain the resilience because we're not stuck in the emotional states that keeps us stagnant in the pain, in the challenge, and so on. Because we now know to keep moving forward and face our challenges head on, because there's an opportunity to learn something new. There's an opportunity to gain wisdom. There's an opportunity to gain confidence through the experience that is going to allow me to face my fears head on, therefore gaining the mastery that I need over myself. Bringing us into the next one, authentic self-expression. Self-compassion encourages individuals to be authentic and true to themselves, fostering a sense of self-worth and enabling them to express their thoughts and emotions more freely. Now, when we learn to accept that everybody's in their own course, in their own challenge, in their own phase, and everyone has their own set of uniqueness that makes them authentically them, we start to be okay with that within ourselves as well. In fact, when we learn to be okay with that within ourselves first, we learn to embrace that within another much easier. Because the authenticity that we see and know within ourselves, we learn to love and we learn to appreciate our uniqueness. And the more we do of that, when we see uniqueness and authenticity in another, it's like we're so happy to experience it. We're so happy to see it radiating out of another, because when a person is radiating out of authenticity, it's a whole different experience. It's a whole different feeling. It looks and it feels so different, because authenticity in itself is one of the highest energy frequencies, because you're not using so much of your energy trying to mask and dim that authentic expression of yourself. So you just learn to embrace it, and then you start to become more of it, therefore attracting more of it in your experience, because that is what you're radiating, that is what you are emitting. Therefore, your projection of your internal world is going to be the result of what you experience externally. So that's also an amazing thing. And last, we have continuous growth. The mindset cultivated through self-compassion supports a lifelong journey of learning, adapting, and growing, contributing to ongoing self-mastery. Because when we're moving forward, we know that every lesson, every experience, every move forward, every step, every stone put, it's teaching us something new. As every experience is an opportunity to gain wisdom. And instead of resisting the natural process that allows us to grow and expand our conscious awareness of self, we learn to embrace it and flow with the ebb and flow of it, therefore being one with the continuous growth of the process. Now, what are some methods for achieving self-compassion? The first we have is mindful self-reflection, as we identify any self-critical and negative thoughts, acknowledging them without judgment, right? Because we have to self-reflect. Self-reflection is always going to be the first step, because in order for us to know what we need to change, we need to self-reflect on what is happening. What is my current state? What is my current story? What is my current narrative? What is my internal dialogue? What am I constantly telling myself? What am I telling myself when I observe my experience, when I get something wrong or when something's going wrong? And my instinct or my natural impulsive reaction or behavior would be to judge myself, to criticize myself, to believe that I am not good enough, to believe that I don't have what it takes. I have to first reflect on what is happening so that I can catch those moments, so that when I do catch these moments, these narratives, the internal dialogue, and the story that I'm telling myself, I can go ahead and promote a much healthier mindset by reframing that perception of myself, by introducing the self-compassion that is necessary to do so, by viewing myself like simply a child that is going through the life experience of this world and is learning more of itself through each and every experience, bringing itself back into its true essence of self after going through the course of life that told it to judge itself, to criticize everything, that made it believe that it needs to be perfect to reach a certain element or a level of itself, right? All of these narratives and illusions that were created either from our culture, our upbringing, or even ourselves, right? We need to understand what is it that we need to unlearn before we learn and introduce something new. Because the space that we remove from the old, it's where we're going to reintroduce or introduce a new perception. And through mindful self-reflection, we practice self-compassion by reframing negative thoughts with kind and understanding statements. For example, replace "I can't do anything right" with "I am doing my best, and that's enough." Now, for the next method would be visualization techniques. Close your eyes and visualize yourself as a vulnerable and lovable child. Picture yourself at a time when you needed comfort and understanding. Imagine approaching this inner child with love, care, and acceptance. Comfort your inner child and assure them that you are there for them. Extend the same compassion to your current self, recognizing that you deserve the same kindness and understanding. So sometimes we think that just because we grew in age and we are considered adults at a certain age, even though most people are actually just adults, just children in adult bodies, right? Because they either been stunted in their developmental stages or through trauma or something. But a big majority of individuals actually never grow up past certain ages. So don't assume that because a person is a certain age, they are an adult and they are to be taken serious and they are to have their ish together, right? Because it is not so. You have people that have their ish together at 25 or at 80 or at 50. It really doesn't matter. It's all about your mindset and what is it that you are cultivating within you that is allowing you to experience every experience that you are choosing to experience. Which is why using this visualization techniques allows you to be okay with that inner child within you without judging it, without criticizing it. Just knowing that whether I am experiencing my human experience as a child, as an adult, it doesn't even matter. It is all within the same. It's just different phases of myself, but it is still me in my essence, right? And because I visualize, let's say, my inner child or my child version of self, and I remember the level of innocence that I had, and I remember how I wanted to be nurtured and cared for, and when I was spoken a certain way, how that tone of voice would trigger me to feel not grieved, but it would hurt my feelings, right? Do you remember those times when if your parents spoke to you a certain way as a child, you felt heartbroken, like, why would you talk to me like that? And you just start crying. And you reflect and you realize, wow, how many times have I spoken to myself like that, continuing that very cycle? So as a child, I knew that that's not what I liked. That's not what I needed to really understand what it was that I needed to understand. So why is it that I choose to do that to myself now? Is the question we should be asking. It didn't work then, so why would we do it now? But what would happen if we were understood, comforted for our emotions, and softly spoken to and said, it's okay, you're learning, you're just learning, I'm here to help you, you didn't do anything wrong, you're just learning. You felt understood, you felt nurtured, and you felt loved. So the criticizing and the judgment would unlikely not be more common if you had that experience. So it is something that, yes, we do learn a lot by the experiences that we had in our upbringing and our developmental stages in life. But it is something that we need to become aware that if it didn't work then, let's not do it now. And if we are consciously aware, we should not repeat the same methods, the same cycle, the same tone of voice, because we saw and experienced how it affected us. So by becoming aware of the wrongs in those experiences, as our parents did the best they could with what they knew, probably repeating the same methods used upon them, we have to go with that awareness of they did the best they could. I forgive them because that's probably all they know, but I'm going to have compassion for them because I now see where they're coming from, but also compassion with myself, as I won't choose to repeat that cycle even as an adult. Even though I am an adult, I still have feelings. I still want to experience love and understanding and comfort. So I am not going to neglect that within myself. And when you learn to not neglect that within yourself, you start attracting people that now understand you better, that now won't neglect those needs within you, because we only experience that what we give ourselves. So let's say, for example, you are harsh on yourself. You criticize yourself. You say mean things to yourself. What do you think we're going to attract in a partner? How do you believe they would talk to us? If we are experiencing, in fact, the projection of our internal world. Are we going to enjoy that experience? Or is it an experience we're going to think that we want to change because they don't know how to speak to me? But in reality, how can you attract a person that speaks to you better if you don't do that for yourself? You see, it all connects. But we won't go into that in this level, but these are just, like I said, the basics. For our third method, we have compassionate affirmations. Develop a set of compassionate affirmations that you can repeat during challenging methods. Create statements that acknowledge your struggles without judgment and offer words of encouragement. For example, I am worthy of love and understanding, especially in difficult times. Which means, like I mentioned before, the visualization tactic allows us to see and remember what we needed as we were children and wanted to feel nurtured and loved and cared for and accepted. We need to start reframing the way we speak to ourselves in ways that allows our inner world to know, our subconscious, our body, which is all alive, to know that it is supported, that it is worthy of love and understanding, and that we're going to have patience with ourselves, especially during difficult times, because we are experiencing a time that is challenging our emotional regulation, let's say, or our resilience, or our fortitude, or our ability to overcome challenges. So instead of adding more negativity to the fuel, we learn how to neutralize it by speaking to ourselves in the matter that's going to now cultivate and nurture the growth that is needed during these difficult times. So use these affirmations as a tool to reframe negative thoughts and cultivate a more compassionate inner dialogue. So when we think about self-compassion, how do we integrate self-compassion in our daily life? The first one we have here is daily self-compassion check-in. Establish a daily routine for checking in with yourself. Ask, how am I feeling? And how can I offer myself kindness today? This simple practice creates a consistent space for self-compassion. So if you're using the app tracker, which is why I kind of put the tracker for checking in on our emotional state, so that we learn the patterns of what is consistent in our daily life within the days to come. And also we put those reminders of things like this to ask ourselves these right questions that are going to cultivate a consistent space for self-compassion. To ask, how am I feeling? How can I offer myself the kindness I need today? How can I nurture myself? How can I express or give myself self-love today? These are things we need to do for ourselves so that the experience that we have in our external reality reflects that back to us. Bringing us into the second way we can introduce self-compassion into our daily life, which is mindful pause in challenges. Develop the habit of taking a mindful pause during challenging moments. Instead of reacting harshly, pause and consciously choose self-compassion. The shift in response can be transformative. So, obviously, I always say in any form of conflict, in any form of discomfort, in any form of disagreement, in any form of challenge, before you say anything you regret, before you do anything you regret, before you act harshly to yourself or others, take a moment to pause. Pause and breathe. Pause and breathe. And always be in the stillness of what is it that you are experiencing, so that in the present moment, you learn how to Be in the inner knowing, in the awareness of this very moment, this very present moment, so that you know what it is to be in this state. And by knowing what it is to be in this state, you know more of the self under the pressures of this state. And instead of reacting, you use it as an opportunity to gain wisdom and internal knowing of yourself and what is going on within yourself under these moments of challenges and situations that might trigger you to react. So by being mindfully and allowing yourself to pause, you're always in the mastery aspect of yourself. Because you're not reacting, you are using your ability to self-reflect and pause and take a moment to breathe and analyze the current state. You are taking control back of the moment and not allowing your emotions to take over so that you don't do anything you regret. Bringing us into the conclusion of this first part. As we conclude part 1 of practicing self-compassion, remember that kindness towards yourself is not a luxury but a necessity on your self-mastery journey. Embrace the power of self-compassion to navigate challenges with resilience and build meaningful connections. May this practice become an integral part of your daily life, enriching your relationships with yourself and others.